4 R's of rejections. So there's a whole chapter called When You Change Your Relationship with Rejection, You Change Your Life. And, as human beings, let me just set this up right now, because a lot of us don't know why fully we're stuck, or why we're not going for the things, or why we are staying in a relationship when we feel in our soul we deserve better, but maybe we're afraid to be alone, or we're afraid to put ourselves out there. There's so many ways that fear of rejection and failure hold us back and talk ourselves out of our own truth and all the things. So just to take a step back, as human beings, we're wired to avoid pain at all costs, right? It's how we've survived. And it's why for some of us, when we associate pain with working out, even though we know the pleasure of, feeling great and, hitting our fitness goals and all that, we will choose to avoid the pain over going for the pleasure most every time. And with rejection and failure, when we fear them, we often fear them for very painful reasons. We associate pain with them. So much so that it keeps us stuck. So many of us not only fear rejection and failure, we've had so many of them happen in our lives that we literally let it take root at an identity level, and we start to believe we're a failure. We start to label ourselves with things like rejected, right? Failure, not enough, don't fit in, unqualified, all the things. So let me just start. We're going to go through the 4 R's together, okay? Yeah. Everyone listening, watching, let's do this together. You got to go all in with me and Lisa, though. Got to go all in and be really honest with yourself, because this will be eye-opening, I think, for a lot of people when they go through this. So let me just start with a question, okay? Because the 4 R's are to reveal, to redefine, to revisit, and to revel. But let me explain what that means and how it can literally change your life right now. The first thing is, right now, when you ask yourself this question, think about a time in your life where you've been rejected or failed at something. What is the first thought you had? And be really honest with yourself. And you might need to kind of imagine yourself in a situation where you've been rejected or you failed. What is the first thought without thinking about it? This happens without us thinking about it. But what's the first thought you thought to yourself when that happens?
Okay, first thought, see, I told you you're stupid.
That would be your first thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. For me, my first thought most of my life is, yep, I'm not enough. Yep, there's proof again. I'm not enough. And yours is, yep, I told you you're stupid. Lisa, bill you. Okay. Whenever I've been in rooms and I've asked this question, the number of answers that people are so vulnerable and brave to share are so similar to yours and mine. Like, I should have never tried. I knew it. I don't have what it takes. I'm a loser. I'm, stupid.
It's like the confirmation of the negative that you think of yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And so here's what happens. And for so many of us, watching us right now, everyone who just thought of that thought, write it down if you can. I don't want you to forget this, but that very first thought you had, some of us have multiple. We can have multiple. Write them down, right? For me, it was almost always, yep, there's proof again. I'm not enough every time. What your thought you just had right now is your current definition of rejection or failure. That is your current definition. So we've just revealed, first R, your current definition of rejection or failure. For most of us, that definition is so painful that we want to avoid it at all costs. So, because here's the thing in life, everything is the meaning we assign to something, right? And if you are assigning a meaning to rejection or failure that's painful, we're wired to avoid that at all costs, which is then why we feel stuck, why we're not going for things, why we're not taking things to the next level. We don't want to risk feeling like, oh yeah, I'm stupid, I'm not enough, I'm a loser, all the pain that comes with rejection or failing, right? So revealing your current definition is huge. And for every person who just had a thought of their current definition that's painful, it is most likely a big reason of why you're stuck, or a big reason of why you haven't necessarily taken stuff to the next level, or why you're not sure why you're not back on the dating app, or you're not going up to the person at the party, or any of those things. If our definition stays painful for our entire lives, it will prevent us from taking our life to the next level, right? And we will end up looking back and going, wow, what has fear of rejection or failure already cost us in our life? And for so many of us, the answer is way too much. Even to pause this episode or to do this at the end of the episode and really take some time and think, what has this current definition of rejection and failure already cost me in my life? And you can even do it by categories in my life, in my relationships, in my friendships, in my hopes and dreams, in my career ambitions, in my joy, in moments of being at the pool with everybody, moments with my children, all of it, right? Moments of celebration. What does it cost me when I look in the mirror? For a lot of us, we reject ourselves, and we're afraid of it. So the first thought everyone just wrote out that you just had for Lisa, yours was,
I told you that you're stupid.
yeah, see, I told you that you're stupid. And for me, my whole life, it's been, oh yeah, there's proof I'm not enough. And so that's our current definition. We have revealed our current definition, the first R. So the second R is to redefine the meaning we attach to rejection and failure when it happens in our life. How this happened for me, it was years and years of rejections. And one day I'd had a really painful rejection from QVC. I knew in my soul, this is the thing, when you have, so many of us think our intuition's wrong. It's not wrong. It's just divine timing isn't right yet, okay? I knew in my gut, in my soul, we were supposed to be on QVC, which is the live television shopping channel broadcast to 100 million homes. But every time I sent them our product, it was a no, right? Every time. And eventually, we built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history. So I was in the season of long rejections. I just got a real painful rejection from QVC. I was under my covers, crying myself to sleep, all that. And I remember I just felt like, why do I keep feeling like I'm supposed to keep going? Every time I pray about it and get still, I feel like I'm supposed to keep going when everyone around me is rejecting me or telling me no or saying it's never going to work. And one day, Lisa, I Googled all the people I admire most, people that have just crushed it in business, had built huge successes, thought leaders, people that have moved humanity forward, people that have been forces for good and love in this world. And I just started reading about all of them. Every single one of them has dealt with tons of rejections and failures. They're just the brave ones willing to keep going anyways. And that day, I wrote out this new definition for rejection. I wrote, rejection does not mean I'm not enough. Rejection means this is a victory because I'm one of the brave ones who's willing to keep going for it, right? I'm not one of the people sitting on the sidelines, not going for it, living my life in regret. I'm going to decide right now that every time a rejection happens, every time I fail again at something, this is huge. This is a victory. This means this is a reminder I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it. And I literally believe that, right? And I wrote out that definition. Another one that I wrote out was rejection's God's protection. Oprah loves rejection's redirection, right? We all have these meanings that we write out, but they have to be true in your soul. And so the second R, which is redefine, is so important. And you can use, some of the ones I've shared, you can write your own new definition, but it has to feel true in your soul. It could be like, rejection means I'm putting in the reps and I'm one step closer to getting what I want. I'm putting in the reps, like whatever resonates with you. But step 2, the second R, is to write out a new definition of rejection that you are going to, every time you face rejection or failure, and you're tempted to play that old soundtrack, you intercept it, you replace it with your new definition you know to be true.
And I assume that new one also has to propel you forward.
Yeah. And what it does, Lisa, it builds resiliency. You start to fear rejection and failure less because you're not attaching pain with it anymore, right? And so for me, I started doing that every time. And in this season, in this long stretch, I don't know that I could have ever had the outcome I had with my business had I not learned how to do this. But this applies to our personal lives. It applies to every area of our dating lives, right? Our friendships that we're trying to build, because most all of us deal with rejection every day in different ways. Failure every day. Just most people aren't posting it on social media. So we scroll and we think everything's great and we're the only ones, right? Not true. But when we learn how to literally embrace it and not fear it, it changes everything. And so your second one, and you can do this right now, is to write out a new definition. And I love writing more than one, keeping them in my toolbox. Another example, I was adopted and placed into adoption the day I was born. And growing up, I had the best parents ever, and they worked a lot. The parents who adopted me worked all the time. And when I found out by surprise I was adopted in my 20s, I went through this season of my life where I just felt like I was abandoned. I felt like I was abandoned. I felt like my parents were never there growing up, this whole thing. And I felt rejected, and I redefined my definition of what had happened to me. And in that case, I was like, oh, I wasn't rejected. I was chosen. Like I was chosen by my birth mom to come into this world. Her life would have been way easier had she not done that. I was chosen by God to be conceived. My birth parents were together one time ever and never again. And I was chosen by my adopted parents to raise me. I'm not rejected. I'm chosen. Right? So that's another example. And it changed my life when I decided that's my story. That's the meaning I'm attaching to things. When we do this, it is a powerful tool. And so, take some time and write out what are some new true definitions I'm going to attach to rejection and failure every time it happens in my life. And when you do this, it literally helps you just become more fearless going after things, helps you embrace rejection and failure more, it becomes so much more resilient. The third R is called revisit. And this is about the power of revisiting past rejections and failures in your life, and then redefining the meaning you give to them. For so many of us, we have been hurt. We've been rejected. We've had things not go our way. We feel like we've had so many failures and setbacks, and a lot of times we've given a meaning to them that can take root at our identity and really impact our self-worth, right? And we've been carrying that meaning for so long. Labels like this are not permanent. They are like Post-it notes with a light adhesive, and we can remove them, even though for a lot of us, we've been carrying the weight of these like heavy armor, for some of us for decades. So revisit, the third R, is the most powerful. And when you go back to potentially a rejection from someone who broke your heart, or someone in your family who did not know how to love you the way you needed to be loved. It could be a number of things.
And your identity would be tied to that as I'm someone that's not lovable.
Okay. Yeah, I'm someone that's not lovable. I'm someone that, I'm, in my case of being adopted or having my parents over there, not just I'm rejected, but I'm a reject. For a lot of us, we feel like our past mistakes don't just mean that we did something bad. We think it means we're bad. So these things can take real root when we really look at the story we're telling ourselves about it, and they can really affect our self-worth. And so when we revisit past rejections and just become aware, what is the meaning I'm giving to this? What is the definition and the meaning I'm attaching to that? And rewriting that meaning. And this is really powerful. And then every time that memory comes to you, just like anything else, you catch it and you replace it with, like, for me, every time I'm tempted to be like, I'm abandoned, I'm rejected, I'm a reject, I don't belong, I'm unwanted, I instantly replace that. I'm chosen. I am chosen. I am here on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose. Like, I replace it right away. And this is real powerful stuff because it takes root at our identity. It's not just about, let me think positive. This is deep stuff of how we define who we are that affects every single one of us. And so when we revisit and redefine our new definition, it can be so, so, so powerful. And one of my favorite ways to do this, my favorite definitions to use for the third R, and this is, I think, so good for anyone who's had someone pull the rug out from underneath them, break their heart, not value you. It could be deep stuff. It could also just be you wanted that job so bad. You applied for it over and over and over and they didn't hire you. It could be a lot of things. This is my favorite definition when I redefine stuff in the past. I literally, Lisa, I imagine God saying to me, oh, you weren't rejected. I hid your value from them because they're not assigned to your destiny. And I choose to believe it. And over time, we learn these things are true. Like, how many times has like the dude broken your heart and everyone was like, he is no good for you, but you're like, I love him. And you want it to work so bad and he just doesn't see your value. Now, 10 years later, you're like, thank God I did not end up with him. Thank God I did not end up with him, right? God hid my value from him because he is not assigned to my destiny. And Lisa, to this day, even, if we have friends and for some reason I'm not invited or there's someone I just adore them and I don't know why, but no matter what I do, they're just not into me. They're just like, they just don't want to be friends. And the old me would say, oh, I'm not enough. Now I'm like, oh, God's blocking my value from them because they're not assigned to my destiny. Mm. And it prevents me from letting this take root at a worth or identity level. I believe this definition. I believe this. And over time, sometimes we don't see it right away, but over time, these new definitions, they prove to be true because you knew in your soul they were true when you wrote them, right? When you know and that's why when you write out your new definitions, you got to know in your soul level they are true. Whether for you it's, rejection is the universe's protection. The universe always has my back. I'm going to trust it. Whether it's for me, oh, God hid my value from them because they're not assigned to my destiny. Over time, like I know that is true in my soul. And so over time, it always proves right. Rejection's God's protection in the case of the investor, whatever they are. And what this does is it completely flips that fear of rejection and failure on its head. It instantly helps us get unstuck, right? It instantly just inspires us to go for things because we know what's the worst that can happen? That I'm reminded I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then the fourth R is to revel in the fact that you become real fearless about rejection and failure and that you no longer believe you're, like in my case, a reject or a failure. And this is such a powerful tool because it impacts our self-worth. And you open this interview with something I have never shared in my life about working as a waitress in a strip club. And I was also waitressing at Denny's at the same time. And I had another job I got shortly after, slicing meat in the deli. And I was just hustling, trying to make it, trying to, pay my way through school, all the things. But at the time, I knew in my gut, I had these big dreams and these big, and I just felt like I'm here on this earth to serve and to impact and to give and to create. But I was in this moment in my life where I didn't believe I was worthy of those things. And all of these tools, had I not learned them, I would have never stepped on the trains when the doors opened. And I'm just like, to be here, I'm going to get emotional if I talk about this, but honestly, to be here with you, talking about these things, to know that 80% of girls and women don't believe they're enough right now, as we're talking. 73% of men feel inadequate. This affects every area of our lives. And I feel like I know in my soul, when we learn to believe we are enough and worthy exactly as we are, is the moment every single thing in our entire life changes. It's the moment we step on the train. And it's the train to our destiny. But so many people, they want to step and they don't, and they doubt themselves out of their own destiny. So literally, the time for change has come, Lisa Bilyeu. No girl, no woman, no person left behind in knowing they are worthy.
That was so freaking amazing the way you broke that down. And as you were doing it, I was like, this is like the medicine and the recipe, right? If you want to be a chef, you need to know what ingredients do what to something. Yes. And then you can try, you can dabble, you can follow someone else's instructions, you can create your own. But we don't think that about life. I used to think when I was younger, extremely insecure, that, girl in North London that was getting bullied for her looks. I would look at Oprah and I would look at other people amazing and I would just dismiss them. I would dismiss them because I was like, well, they're born special. So I could never do that. And it was a great soothing mechanism in real time to make me feel better about myself, to dismiss other people that were amazing. And then that way I didn't have to challenge or look at myself. And having gone through my own evolution and meeting you, it's insane how wrong that was. And I will let you speak for yourself, but I don't think I'm anything special. I just think I'm resilient enough to keep on going when I get dinged, when I get punched in the face metaphorically. And so the way that you just broke that down, hopefully, are the ingredients that someone can now take, make their own dish, but actually start to live that life that they want, right? That they don't allow rejection as the thing that holds them back, that they don't dismiss themselves of what they're freaking capable of by looking at maybe somebody like you and going, well, I can't be as good as Jamie Kern Lima. And that's why I wanted to start the interview exactly how I started it, because I think that it is a beautiful way to see what is possible. And the fact that in this whole interview, you've broken down how that was possible is now honestly the biggest gift I think you can give people. And to your point, this is why I show up as well, is that if we can allow people, like I'm still learning, I still learn from you, I still learn from the book, like I always want to keep growing. And if we can help people have that mentality that it doesn't mean that you're a failure, that it doesn't mean that you're worthless, that it doesn't mean fill in the blank. Now, can you imagine what's possible?
Okay, I cannot sit here as your friend and hear you say you do not think you are special. Let me just say something, okay? There's a whole chapter in Worthy called You're Not Crazy, You're Just First. And every single one of us right now, every person watching, every person listening, like there is not, whether you listening, watching right now, believe that you are made in God's image the way I do, whether you believe in the universe, whatever you believe, this is undeniably true, that there is not another person in this entire universe quite like you, right? Every person watching us right now, there is no one else in existence with your unique fingerprints, with the unique iris in your eyes. Every single one of us has a unique tongue print. We actually have a unique heartbeat. There's no one else in existence that has the same emotions you have, the same feelings, the same thoughts, the same experiences. You are so undeniably special. You can't even argue it, no matter what you believe. You cannot argue it. And here's the thing that I would love to leave everyone with. When you are brave enough to show up in this world as who you are, all of who you are, by definition, you're first. There's never been another you before. There will never be another you again. And when you show up as who you authentically are, you're first. So don't be surprised if not everyone gets it and not everyone gets you. Don't be surprised if you don't feel like you belong sometimes. Don't be surprised if you feel like there's things that are odd or quirky or different or unique or wrong with you. It's because you're first. And there are a lot of people that will not show up as who they authentically are. But when you show up and say what you mean and be who you are first. There's never been another you in the whole universe. And when I realized this in my life, because so much of my life I felt like I didn't fit in or I didn't belong, and I had this huge moment where I realized, oh, and my family had these big dreams and they used to call me words like crazy or this or that. And I realized, I'm not crazy, I'm just first. And for every person watching us right now, when you are brave enough to be who you truly are, you are undeniably special. And also you're first. You're not crazy. You're just first, right? And the first ever you. And the things we think so often are what's quirky or wrong with us are actually the greatest things right with us. They're the greatest things right with us, right? And when we learn to embrace that we're first, it can change everything, because it's that tool, right? That this idea, you're not crazy, you're just first. It's this tool that just gives you this power to show up more as who you authentically are in every moment. And every time you do that, you tell yourself you are worthy of doing it. And that is how you rise your self-worth one step at a time.
You have nothing but closed doors in front of you
Yes.
and a ton of product and no money.
Yes.
What is the turning point?
Yes.
Why did you not give up?
Yeah. So, two big things happened. The first was in the form of a crazy, painful rejection. So I thought, Mel, so we got a call from a big potential investor
Okay.
and very famous for launching all these sort of unknown brands and making them big products we all buy in grocery stores. And, and I thought, and they gotten a hold of our product. And I thought, like, oh, if they invest, then A, I'm not going to go bankrupt. B, like we can leverage their clout to get in these stores that keep telling me no.
Yeah.
Like I had this whole scenario planned out that was like this Pretty Woman moment, right? Where I was like, oh, he's going to save the day. And so we started taking meeting after meeting, it got down to the final meeting with this huge investment firm, and it was in person. My husband and I actually flew to the meeting, and the head guy was about 3 feet from me.
Yeah.
And his whole team was there, who was awesome. I had just presented our whole future product pipeline, and he says, you should be so proud of this product you've created. It's really, really good. But it's a no, we're going to pass on investing in It Cosmetics. And I was like, okay, can you tell me why? Because I'm so used to hearing no. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, even though really I was devastated, but
Well, yeah, because they just led you on and you just went through it. And this was supposed to be the meeting where they're like, let's do this.
and I was so hopeful and I was so desperate.
Yeah.
And he got very quiet and he says to me, do you want to know, I said, can you tell me why? And he says to me, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I said, yes, please. And he got really quiet. And he's like 3 feet from me in person. And he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And when he said that to me, and this is why it was such a big moment for me, when he said that to me, first of all, a lifetime of body doubt and self doubt. Like I remember it flooding my body all at once. And when I looked at him, I actually felt no anger toward him. I felt like I was almost like staring my own fear straight in the eye. But when he said those words to me, Mel, and this is when we talk about purpose and intuition, he said, I just don't think women will buy makeup for someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. The second he said that, I felt this feeling in my gut. Like I can remember it like it was yesterday, this like strong feeling that said, he's wrong. Like I felt it, right? And I didn't know how I was going to prove it, but I felt that feeling. And what I realized later when I look back at that moment, this dude gave me a no, but God gave me a knowing in that moment, in that moment. And I believe every one of us has had someone tell us we're not the right fit or no, or you don't have what it takes. Sometimes we're the ones telling ourselves that.
I don't love you anymore.
Yes, yes, right? But if you get still and you learn to hear your knowing, I believe which one you listen to. If you listen to the no, all the no's, all the rejections, all the self-doubt, or you get still and listen to your knowing, whether that's from your own intuition, from your creator, from the universe, whatever speaks to you, but we all have it. We all have it. And I believe our life and our purpose and and our entire destiny comes down to which one we listen to. Do you listen to the no or do you listen to the knowing?
Okay. I promised a masterclass. That right there is worth $1 billion. In life, are you going to listen to the no, or are you going to listen to the knowing inside of you? That's it.
Yeah.
As somebody who loves you and as your friend, when you shared that story with me and hearing you tell it again right now, I literally go, I'm going to kill that motherfucker. I go, I have that, my knowing goes, oh yeah? Oh yeah? You think, okay,
Yeah.
okay, let me show you. Like it's that, like I get that sort of mojo thing going when somebody says no like that at a moment like that. It's like, I'll show you.
Yeah.
And I guess I just got in this moment sort of this wake up call that my knowing often feels like, I'll show you.
Yeah.
You missed out. You'll be sorry. What does yours sound like?
And it's almost always true. That's almost always true, right?
What does yours sound
So,
like? So is yours
yep.
like, Or is it more of like,
I mean, in that case, I was devastated and at the same time had this strong, it was just a peace. Honestly, in that moment, it was a peace. He's wrong. And that didn't make sense in my head. Why? Because I had had 3 years of hundreds of rejections. And this is the thing, right? Jay-Z says the genius thing we did was we didn't give up. That's like one of my favorite quotes of his. In that moment, everything told me to give up, Mel. I mean, it was hundreds of rejections. And now what felt like my last hope of desperation told me something totally different. No, because not only do I not believe in anything you're doing necessarily, but I actually just think you're personally not the right fit. Like women just won't buy makeup from me. It was just like, oh my gosh, it was like all of these no's everywhere. And I want to share that because it's easy for someone to go, oh, wow, she built $1 billion company. She must have just got lucky. Or maybe she just had so many connections. Or we always think, but really what it comes down to sometimes, in this case, that big moment for me, do you listen to the no's or you listen to the knowing, right?
yeah.
And I made that decision that day to trust the knowing, to trust myself. I kept feeling like I was supposed to keep going. I didn't know how, right? And
What do you do when you don't even know the next step? So you got this kind of, jerk who's like, yeah, they're not going to buy it because of your body type and this, that, and the other thing. You're like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're wrong, motherfucker.
Yeah.
But what do you do next?
And so the next right step, the next thing that feels right when you can't even see how the heck it's
How
going
do
to
you
work
even
out.
determine what the next right step is?
Yeah, you just get, for me, I just get still. I pray,
Yeah.
you know that.
Yeah.
I pray. And but whether for you, listening, it's prayer or it's the universe or your intuition, when you get still, all you can do is try to listen, right? And try to live that answer, whatever it is, and take that next right step. And I just had this knowing I was supposed to keep going. And even when it didn't make sense. And I remember crying myself to sleep. I remember writing in my journal, know your why, then fly, girl, fly. And I read those words every day till I didn't need the reminder. I would Google stories of people that had gone through thousands of rejections who no one would know that they went through them because they're so successful today. And I just kept trying to sort of build this toolbox of things I could lean on.
And how did QVC come about? Because
yeah.
you built It Cosmetics and it became, because of you, the most successful beauty brand on all of QVC. You did over 1,000 appearances.
Yeah.
So how did you even get onto QVC? Because that in and of itself is no small feat.
Yeah, well, their head guy of beauty, who's like a legend, had said no to me many times. No, you're not the right fit. And I happened to be at this big beauty expo.
And was this before or after this guy was like, no, we're not investing?
After.
After? So she has now gotten 3 years of no's.
Yeah.
They're almost out of money. Her intuition is knowing that she's going to fly, girl, fly. So she is still showing up to a beauty expo
Yeah.
where I want you to understand, in the business world, it's like going to a convention where everybody that you have ever fooled around with, who has then broken up with you, is attending. So everybody that has said no to her,
Yes.
she walks in and it's like, oh, here's this chick again, the it chick, right?
Yep.
The
yep.
it cosmetics person that has been sending me the stuff and calling me, and we have told her no, do not make eye contact. So you are now at this thing.
This describes it exactly. Everyone you fooled around with, who broke up with you, and they're like, "Oh, don't make eye contact."
Yeah, oh
it's
God,
that.
this chick again with the skin, with the okay.
Yep.
So you're at this thing. You've been told no by the big person. It's been 3 years. So we're talking like 2011, 2012-ish. What do you do?
So you get this 3-foot table, right? It's a huge convention. There's 6,000 women at this convention.
Wow.
They're walking up and down, and it's every beauty brand in the world.
Are they buying it for their stores or?
No, so what it is, it was this big Cosmetic Executive Women Awards show.
Okay.
And why you're there is you get a 3-foot table, you're demonstrating your product. You're hoping that someone who walks by either wants to carry your product in their stores, or all the press is there.
Right.
They cover your product, or there's also, you can win some big award. So I'm there and then all the brands you can imagine, right, are there. And there's 6,000 women walking. And when I got there, I saw QVC had this huge booth in the background, and you're not allowed to leave your table, right? And I couldn't afford to get kicked out. But I just kept having this feeling like, okay, I've called them a million times. They've told me no forever, but I've never like met anyone in person, right? So I kept trying to sneak away from my table. And every time I got over there, the buyers would be mobbed with people.
Mm.
I eventually got over there, made my way to one of the buyers, introduced myself, poured my heart out. Like I remember sweat just dripping through my clothes because I was freaking out, down to no money.
Yeah.
I'll cut a real long story short, but she gave me her card. It's like when someone says, "Oh, DM me on Instagram." You don't know if they really
Right.
mean it. Then you're on your Instagram checking your DMs, and you're like, "Oh, they still haven't replied." And I thought, is that what it's going to be like? But she actually meant it. And I flew out, had a meeting with her. We got a yes, my first big yes, for one shot on QVC. And what it meant, Mel, was I was going to get this 10-minute segment live on the air, live in front of 100 million homes. And I either had to sell enough product to hit their sales goal
Yep.
or not come back. We were only doing 1 to 2 orders a day on our website.
Okay.
And
1 to 2 orders a day, everybody.
Yep.
After
Yep.
almost
3 years.
3 years of
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
This
And
is
barely
like,
keeping the lights on.
and so now you get your shot.
I
Like
get
there are
my
those
shot.
moments in life,
Yes.
you're at bat,
Yep.
and you got to be ready for those.
Yeah.
And so put us right there with you. What happened?
Yeah. What happened was I was about to learn one of the greatest life lessons I've ever learned to this day. And here's what I mean by that. So I found out I get one shot, and then I learn it's consignment, which means so first of all, I had to sell over 6,000 units of our concealer in this 10-minute window to hit their sales goal or not come back, which was about like $130,000 or $140,000 of product in a 10-minute window.
I also want to point out to everybody that's 10 years of sales on her website at the current amount. So in 10 minutes, everybody,
Yeah.
she on live television
Yeah.
has to move 10 years worth of volume she was selling on her website at that time.
In one shot. Like
In one shot. And she'd never done this before. I realize you were a television anchor, but this is a totally different thing.
Well, QVC, it's unlike stores where you can walk in and there's thousands of products in one space. Their 1 minute of airtime can get one product. So you're competing with the volume of like Apple iPhone or Dyson vacuum. You have to hit these high sales goals.
Yeah.
And what I quickly learned was the offer was consignment, which meant I wasn't guaranteed to be paid for it. I had to figure out how to get a loan to cover the cost of manufacturing 6,000 units of product, shipping it in, going through legal, going through QC, going through all of it. And then I learned if I go on air and it doesn't sell, I have to take it all back
Oh my God.
and therefore go out of business, right? So you should never, ever, ever accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose, ever. But at this point, it was like, I don't know what else
This is
to
it.
do.
This is the shot.
This is it. And so here's what happened. We went to 22 banks that all said no, and they probably should have. The 23rd bank, which was California Bank and Trust, and gave us a loan that covered our very first purchase order and a little bit more. So I took the little bit more. We hired third-party consultants. I'm like, I'm going all in. I want to do the best 10 minutes I
Yeah.
could possibly do. I want to have no regrets. And they all told me the same thing,
Which is?
if you want a chance at making it, here's what you need to do. You need to use this type of model to demonstrate your product, which is flawless skin, early 20s, all the same skin tone. And I'm like, okay, but that's inauthentic. That's not why I'm building this brand. I'm like, what if I put models in their 70s and then and someone with hyperpigmentation and someone with acne and what if I take my own makeup off on national TV and I could prove live how the product works? And they were mortified. And here's the thing, Mel, they wanted me to win. Like they were giving me the best advice that they know how. And
This had never been done. So is this 2011?
This is 2010. Yeah,
So
end of
2010, everybody.
Mhm.
So this was not something people did. Like
Yeah.
we're talking about the person who changed the industry
Mm.
right here. And this is the moment you're hearing it. And everybody that were the quote experts
Yeah.
were saying no. And this goes back to one of the major takeaways that you were learning from our professor of purpose, Jamie Kern Lima. And that is there's a huge difference between a no and a knowing.
Yeah.
And if
Huge.
you're the only you that will ever exist, your knowing is the unique difference that you're going to make in this world. And in
Yes.
this moment, with one shot to go, everything on the line, a loan from one out of 23 banks that was willing, she said, no way to the freaking experts. And she listened to her knowing. So when you walked into QVC with normal human beings, no flawless
Yeah.
models, no one with perfect skin, all
Yeah.
ages, all body types.
Yep. Yep.
Did people say, wait, you can't take them on the air? Or was there any, like, were people like, oh, she's got, this is just going to be terrible? Like, what was that like when you walked in? Did they even know you were going to take your makeup off?
I let them know I wanted to. And QVC was great. Here's the thing about QVC is like they want everyone to be their authentic selves. It's just
Yep.
this has never been done this way before.
Okay.
And I wish I could say it was easy for me to just go, I'm just going to go with my knowing. But the truth is, I flew out there a week early, Mel. I sat in a rental car in the parking lot, cried every day. I actually second guessed myself. I'm like, if I do it, maybe I'll do it their way first. Then I'll make money. Then I'll do it my way. But I know that, authenticity, you can't fake authenticity. And authenticity alone doesn't automatically guarantee success. But what I do know is inauthenticity guarantees failure every time.
Okay, everybody stop. The professor classes in session. Did you hear that? That inauthenticity, being fake, trying to do something everybody else's way, because that's just, you're too insecure to do it your way.
Yeah.
That never guarantees success.
Yeah.
Authenticity, your knowing, your special spin on things.
Yeah.
That is the pathway to purpose and success.
Yeah.
There is no other way.
Yep.
And so after a week of crying in your rental car in the parking lot at QVC, you were like, I'm going with the knowing.
I'm going with the knowing.
And so tell us about that first appearance. You're standing there on a television set. There's
Yep.
a bazillion cameras. The lights are bright.
Yeah.
You got your models there.
Yeah.
You're taking the risk of your lifetime on live television in front of 100 million homes.
Yes.
You are doing something that has never been done on television before.
Yeah, I remember literally I wore 2 pairs of Spanx, Mel, not because I cared how I looked, but, like, I was so freaked out, like, my hands were shaking and I was sweating through my clothes, so I had on double Spanx under my dress, and I remember the moment the camera went live, right? And there's a big countdown clock on the floor that started at 10 minutes, and by the way, a minute or 2 before I went onto the set, I learned you're not guaranteed your 10 minutes.
Why?
If you are a minute or 2 into your cell and you're not hitting numbers, they know by the second. Your clock, you might think you have 8 minutes still to go, and your clock will jump to 1 or jump to 2 minutes left.
Because your product's a flop.
Yep, exactly.
And you're a flop. So you literally are racing against the clock to be successful out of the gate. So what did you do to like hook everybody? Did you take your makeup off right away? Did you like, what did you do?
So I, first of all, I go out of the, I go live. I remember it was like 9:59, 9:58, 9:50, and I'm like, and I remember I had practiced in my bathroom mirror, right? So many times. If I had known the high five habit then, I would have been way more confident. But I was practicing in the bathroom mirror this demonstration 1,000,000 times on my wrist, how our concealer doesn't crease and the best 2 selling concealers crease. And I'd done this demonstration like this where I show it and they all start to crease. So I'm holding my wrist up, trying to do this as we go live to show that, but my hand's like this now. And it was never like shaking when I was doing it a million times.
It wouldn't bend, everybody. Like she was so anxiety ridden that she's sweating through her 2 pairs of Spanx and her wrist will not bend, so she cannot demonstrate that her product won't crease.
Yes, and the host grabbed my wrist and was like, "Thank you, sugar," and she took over. And then I remember my bright red bare-faced before shot coming up on national television. I remember walking over to our models, real women, all shapes, sizes, skin tones, skin challenges, calling them beautiful, meaning it. I remember.
So when did you take your makeup off? When she
So,
grabbed your hand and said, "Thank you, sugar,"
yeah,
did that
she's
wake
so
you up,
sweet.
or were you like,
Mel, I was like out of my body. I was
so
just
did you
praying.
like just then take your makeup off?
Well, they did a whole bare face before shot of me for that show.
Oh,
I've taken it off live a million times
okay.
since. That
Okay.
first show, it was like, yeah, bare face before shot, and then the after. And I remember walking over to them. I remember we were, 6 or 7 minutes in. I didn't know how we were doing, but I knew we weren't cut yet. And then it got down to like a minute left, and the host said, the deep shade's almost gone. The tan shade's almost sold out. And I was like, freaking out. And I remember literally right at the 10-minute mark, this giant sold out sign came up across the screen, and I start crying on national television.
Oh, I love
They
you.
cut from me and went to like Dyson vacuum or something. And I remember my husband came rushing through the double doors of the studio, and and he's like has his arms up, and I'm just sobbing, and I'm like, real women have spoken, and I'm just like crying, and I thought he was gonna give me a hug or be all excited, and he just looked at me and he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I was like, "Ah." And I just, that one airing, which was September of 2010, became 5 more that year, then 101 the next year. And then I did 250 live shows a year myself, direct live on QVC year after year. So we built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history. And the only reason that I share that is because it was years of no, and you're not the right fit. And what I love for anyone listening who needs to hear this is no one can tell you you're not the right fit. No one. And you can get all the no's in the world, but you have your knowing. And by the way, I believe this, Mel. I believe even when you trust your knowing and then it seems like it was wrong and things don't go your way over and over and over. Like I look back at those moments, right? I really wanted that investor to invest in us. Thank God he didn't.
Oh
When
my
I
God.
say everything's happening for us, what I mean is like, I was so desperate that if he would have invested in us then, I probably would have given him the majority of the company for probably
Right.
almost no money,
Right.
right? By the time, many years, 6 years later, after that day, 6 years later, when L'Oreal bought this little company I started in my living room for $1.2 billion cash, it was still, I was the largest shareholder. Paulo and I were the largest shareholders. And I look back and it's like, oh gosh, thank God all the no's happened when they did, even when they sucked, even when it felt like it wasn't fair. And I can look at that in many scenarios. Sometimes we don't have some big positive outcome, but we learn a purpose through a no,
Right.
right? We learn a calling through a no. We learn a lesson. We build strength. We build resiliency. We appreciate the beautiful moments so much more when we've gone through the tough ones.
So have you ever seen that investor since?
I have not seen him. The day that
Of
we
course, I asked the petty question. I'm like, have you ever like seen him to like twist the little knife in there?
t-
Like,
so I heard from him one time ever
Mhm.
again, and it was 6 years later, the day that L'Oreal announced the deal. So because they're a public company, they announced that they had acquired It Cosmetics, made me the first woman to hold a CEO title of a brand in their 107-year history. They did the big press release. So
That's kind of surprising. 107 years, L'Oreal, a makeup company. It took them that long to have the first female CEO of a brand.
I hope they have many more now. That is my prayer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were the trailblazer there too.
It's been, so many things. It's been a journey. And here's the thing, Mel, it was another woman inside L'Oreal. It was Carol Hamilton, who was head of luxury for North America. She'd been there, 30 plus years, and she championed for me to keep my CEO title, all the things. Like it was another woman saying, "Oh," and it's funny because I actually think she should have been the first woman. You know what I mean? And I think
Mm-hmm.
again, there's an example, by the way, of I believe, I'm not going to speak for her. I believe she knows. This is my opinion. I think she probably knows she should be the first female CEO. But look how she used what she went through to then, boom, be of purpose and of service and help make sure that I kept my CEO title. Everything we go through. But so they announced it, right? So all of a sudden it was homepage of the Wall Street Journal, the press everywhere. And that was the first time and only time since that I heard from that potential investor.
And what did he say?
He said, "Congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I was wrong." is what he said, and wished me the best of luck. And
That's a big
so
deal to admit you're wrong.
it is. And so when you speak about petty, so what I did say to him was thank you. But what I wanted to say, like,
What did you want to say?
so in that moment, here's what I thought about. I thought about, do you remember the movie Pretty Woman where like she goes in the store and they wouldn't help her? And then she
Mhm.
goes back. Remember when she goes back?
Yes.
So I wanted to say to him, big mistake. Huge, huge. I could give you 1.2 billion reasons why it was a huge mistake. But I didn't. I wouldn't have wanted to be him in that situation. We probably would have been one of the most successful investments in his firm's history. And so, listen, it wasn't I always say rejection is God's protection so often.
And you talk about how rejection is protection. You said
Yes.
that, and you have a very personal story that's behind that, right?
Yes, I think this is so true. And I think that in particular for women, it's so important that we start embracing rejection. I think self doubt kills more dreams than almost anything out there. And I think so many people probably listening to us, like at this moment, so many people know they have a dream on their heart, or they know they have something more to give or offer the world or create, or an idea they want to launch, or something they want to do, but they end up letting self doubt take over because they're scared of failure or of rejection. And, my hope and prayer, and a big part of why I wrote Believe It, is I hope to shift perspective around rejection. I hope, even though it's painful, even though it's not fun, I think when we can really embrace it and not take it personal and see it as part of our journey, because what I have learned, and I do believe to be true, is rejection is God's protection. Some people say rejection is the universe's protection. And, I have so many stories of rejection in my book, but one that stands out in particular, I think you might be referencing is, we were a couple years into building It Cosmetics. We got down to under $1,000 in our bank account, which was my personal and business bank account. I didn't know how we were going to stay alive in business. And I had been just getting hundreds of rejections from all the stores. Well, we finally got this inbound phone call from a potential investor. And I was so excited. I thought, oh my gosh, because this was a big private equity company who had like invested in all these products you and I buy at the grocery store. They made them household names. And I thought, wow. And they loved our product at Cosmetics. So I thought, if they invest in us, A, I'm not going to go bankrupt. B, maybe they can use their leverage to try and get us yeses from all of these retailer stores that keep telling me no. So I thought this was going to be life-changing. And we started doing meetings with the potential investor and their whole teams. And it got down to the final meeting. And I thought like it was going to change my life. I was so excited. And I'll never forget, I flew in for this final meeting. My husband was there as well. And the head guy was about 3 feet from me in person. And his whole teams were there. And they said to me, congratulations, we love your product. You should be so proud of everything you're doing with It Cosmetics. But it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in your company. And I was like, okay. And at that point, I'm so used to hearing no, right? This was like a couple of years of hundreds of no's. So I said, well, can you tell me why? Like, can you share with me why? Because feedback is a gift. Usually. And he paused for a long time and he said, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I'm like, yes, please. And he's standing about 3 feet from me. And he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And I remember in that moment, a couple of things, right? I got, first of all, a lifetime of self-doubt and body doubt. Like I felt it flood my body all at once. So I wasn't even mad at him. I felt when he was saying these words to me, I almost felt like I was staring my own fears straight in the eye and just trying to keep my faith bigger than them. But I'll never forget, there was this moment, Angie, where when he said those words to me, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. I got this feeling deep down in my gut, like just a strong feeling of intuition that said he's wrong. Like he's wrong. And I felt it. And, listen, after that rejection, I went and cried. I cried in my car, all those things. But here's the thing is so many times, all of us, no matter who we are, somebody looks us in the eye and in one way or another says to us, you're not enough, or you're not the right fit, or change who you are, to get my love or to fit in or to get in my stores or to get my investment, whatever it is. And those are the moments that change our lives, because we have those decisions to make of, do I trust my gut and stick with my authentic mission, or continue showing up authentically as who I am? Or do I try to change who I am for someone else's approval? And so after that investor said those words that were really hurtful to me, although I appreciate his honesty from his perspective, 6 years later, I hadn't heard from him. 6 years later, when we were acquired by L'Oreal, it was the largest acquisition in their history. And because of that, and L'Oreal is a public company, it was on the homepages everywhere. So the Wall Street Journal homepage was like, It Cosmetics sold for $1.2 billion cash, and this whole thing. 6 years later, when that happened, I heard from that investor. I heard from him, and it was the first time in 6 years. And he said, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I was wrong. And two things I learned, like, had he invested, it would have been the most successful investment in this firm's history. But also, rejection is God's protection, right? Rejection is the universe's protection. What's amazing is, had he believed in me 6 years earlier, right, instead of rejecting me, I had no money. I was so desperate at the time, I probably would have given him the majority of the company for almost no money, right? But because he rejected me, he didn't believe in me. By the time we did sell the company, I was the largest shareholder. And so it was like, rejection is protection, even when it doesn't feel like it at the time.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, Jamie, what was one of the greatest points of rejection, and what happened internally that kept you going when so many people would have quit?
Yeah. I believe when we change our relationship with rejection, like, we literally can change our whole lives.
Okay, I have to stop you. I'm so sorry. I have to stop you. You have to say that again, and I want to let that sink in. Then I want you to keep going. Just say it one more time. I want our listeners to feel that. This is worth the whole time. Say it again, please, and then unpack it for us.
When we change our relationship with rejection, we change our entire lives. We change our teams. We change our business. We change. I believe we can never reach our true calling and our true potential and our true greatness unless we literally learn how to change our relationship with rejection. And when we see it as something that comes with the territory of being a brave one willing to go after your calling, one willing to go after your potential, one willing to bet on yourself and bet on the vision God's put in you, you're a brave one. And I think that when you're going after anything great and anything brave, it comes with rejection. So I've literally in my life, and I still get rejected to this day, right? And like, it's so funny, but it rolls right off me now, Craig. It doesn't hurt me anymore. I see it as like, yeah, it's like a reminder. Oh, I just got rejected again. Yep, I'm a brave one. I'm going after it. I am not going to get to heaven one day and be like, God, I lived as half as who you made me to be. God, I stepped into a quarter of my greatness. God, I know you put all these big things inside of me, and I did some of them. Like, like I keep reminding myself, I want to arrive there and be like, I have nothing left. Be like, I gave it my all. And so I've flipped my mindset into, okay, rejection, boom, boom. I don't hear it anymore as you're not enough, right? I used to always hear rejection as almost like a reminder of something I wish I didn't believe, which is that I'm not enough. And that was a really big thing to get over in my life. And so, part of launching the It Cosmetics, right? Long before it was this, we built a team of over 1,000 employees, became the largest, number one luxury makeup company in the country, in the United States. All these things happen. A lot of people just know that part. But the real journey is a girl who literally, I started believing I wasn't enough. And I tried to enter this beauty industry to change the conversation and help everyone feel like, oh, wait, you are enough. And let's try to shift the conversation around that. But the journey was filled with so many rejections. And, you know, to talk about, I don't even know how I could pick one. There were so many. And here's the thing is so many of the people that rejected me along the way were who I would consider experts, right? And sometimes it's so easy to put experts on this pedestal and be like, well, if they're telling me I don't have what it takes, or they're saying I'm not going to succeed, like it's very hard not to let those words of rejection turn into self-doubt in our own heads. And so on my journey, you know, of sending the product out to all these retailers, and I really believed in it. And two quick rejections that stand out. One was after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rejections from every retailer out there. We got a phone call from a potential investor who's a big private equity company, and they gotten a hold of our product and loved the product and wanted to have a meeting. And I was so excited, Craig, because I thought, oh my gosh, they've taken so many of these unknown brands and made them into huge consumer product companies that we all shop for in grocery stores and know of. And I thought, if they invest, then A, I won't go bankrupt, and B, maybe they can use their leverage to get us into all of these retailers that keep telling me no. And so we did all the meetings, meeting after meeting after meeting. We entered the diligence phase, right, which is when they start looking into all of our financial projections, our future product pipeline. And it came down to the final meeting, and my husband and I flew up for it. And the head guy at the private equity company, he was really kind. His whole team was awesome. And at the end, he says to me, and by the way, this is now after a couple years and hundreds of rejections, right? So we're at that under $1,000 in our bank account, maybe going bankrupt at any moment situation. And we're in person, and he was about 3 feet from me. And he says to me, you know, congratulations. You know, we really believe in your product. It's a great product. But it's a no, we're going to pass on investing in It Cosmetics. And I was just like, oh, like devastated, right? And I was like, okay, but I was so used to hearing no at this point. And I said, well, can you tell me why? Because feedback is usually a gift. I said, can you tell me why? And he got really quiet, and there was a long pause. And he says, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I'm like, yes, please. And he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And I remember when he said those words, well, first of all, it was like a lifetime of body doubt, self-doubt, like flooded my whole body. And I never actually felt any anger toward him or anything like that. But I remember one moment that I just want to call this out, because I feel like these are the moments, and we all have them. We've all had someone look at us and tell us we're not enough, for whatever version of rejection we've faced. And sometimes it's someone in our family who loves us and just doesn't see our dream. Sometimes it's a partner. Sometimes it's in business. But we've all had these moments. And what I'll never forget, Craig, literally like it was yesterday, is when he was saying those words to my face. He says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. I got this feeling deep down in like the pit of my stomach that said he's wrong. Like I felt it so strongly. And I still went out in my car and cried. I still, all those things. And for many years, you know, when I would hear those words, you know how we hear the words sometimes that someone says to us that hurt, I would like imagine myself turning down the volume on them and turning the volume up, and that feeling I had, which I realized is a knowing. It's an intuition. It's a still small voice. It's God telling us, you know, oh, he's telling you no, but I'm giving you a knowing, right? It's that knowing we have inside. And I believe our life comes down to the moments when we trust our knowing over the no's, our knowing over what we can't see in front of us, what looks like, you know, is it going to happen, or is it going to come to pass, or is it, you know what I mean? And by the way, 6 years later, and I'm skipping over so many things, but 6 years later, when L'Oreal bought this little tiny company I started in my living room, for $1.2 billion cash, and it was their largest acquisition in the U.S. and U.S. history for them. They made me the first woman to hold a CEO title in their 100+ year history of any brand. And it was a whole thing. So it was on the homepage of the Wall Street Journal the day that it happened, online. And that's when I heard from that investor for the first time. And he said, congratulations. I hadn't heard from him in 6 years. And he said, congratulations. I was wrong. I'm so happy for you.
And you're so much politer than I am, because I would have said to him, and I'll give you 1.2 billion reasons why you're wrong.
I love that so much.
I don't recommend that anyone else says that, but that's it's just like
so
that.
good.
I want to talk about when you said, I found comfort in knowledge that being underestimated can be a superpower. It sounds really great, right? Like, we both have had experiences where we can now look back and say, oh, you just got to go, you got to push, you just got to believe it. What do you tell, again, that mom that may be home folding the laundry, or that guy that's, just got a divorce and is feeling on the down and out? How would you tell them to believe it? Like, even though someone's told you no, or even though you're in that struggle, like, believe it.
Right. So I think the very first thing is knowing and believing that, like, every one of us has this person I believe we're all born to be. And I think most people never actually become that person. I think most people end up, for a lot of reasons, staying in their comfort zone, almost letting it chip away at their soul, because I think that's what happens when we stay in our comfort zone, and also like talking themselves out of their own truth, right? And I think the very first thing in order to believe that people need to do is make the decision they want to, right? That's the most important, because a lot of people will never make the decision that they want to learn how to believe in themselves, that they want to learn how to believe it's possible to step into all of who they're born to be. And I think that, there's a lot of lessons I've learned that now I really share as tips in the book on how to do this, because I think we're all on a journey. Once we decide, you're like, yeah, I want to, become the person I was born to be step into all of who I am, then there's a lot of, it's a journey, a lot of things we need to do. So, one quick story, and then some tips on what to do for that is, on underestimated is, for me, I feel like I've always been underestimated for whatever reason. And I think sometimes when we're kind to other people, we instantly are underestimated. I think sometimes, you know what I mean? And I think that, one moment, for example, and I think you can use people's underestimation as fuel. And I think sometimes it becomes 360, and it really works as grace in your own journey. And some people might say, a lot of people say, oh, well, things happen for a reason, or the universe is always right, or God always knows what he's doing. And there's a lot of, if you're someone that's always underestimated, I don't think it's an accident. I think that it's actually supposed to be part of who you are on your own journey, and the things that you become strong enough to overcome and smart enough to overcome, right? And one example is, this was before our launch on QVC. We're a few years into this company. I'd started in my living room, thought it was going to be, great. And meanwhile, we got down to under $1,000 in our bank account, which was our personal and our business bank account. I don't know, Sean, if you've ever, I would go to the ATM if I needed $20, and I'd hit no receipt, right? I couldn't stomach seeing the receipt. And,
yes. Yes.
Right? And we finally got this call that I thought was life-changing from a potential investor, private equity company. And they loved our product. And I was like, oh my gosh, Sean, this is going to be huge, because this particular private equity company had created, or I should say invested in and built a lot of the products we buy at the grocery store. And they turned in a lot of consumer products from unknown into big household names, huge companies. I was like, oh my gosh, if they invest in us, we're not going to go bankrupt. B, what if they can use their leverage to get us into all these retail stores that are saying no? I was so excited. And so we started doing meetings with them, and meeting after meeting, we started the diligence phase, which is when we show them like all of our projections and the future products we want to launch and all that stuff. And I remember the final meeting, and I thought like, this is going to be life-changing. My husband and I flew up to this meeting, and we were standing like 3 feet from the head guy. And he said to me, like, we really love your product, and we want to thank you for everything, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in your company. And I said, and I was so used to hearing no at that point, right? So I was like, okay, but can you share why? Like, and because feedback's usually a gift. And he was literally like 3 feet from me, and he says, do you want me to be honest with you? And I said, yes, please. And then he literally looked at me and he said, I just don't think women are going to buy makeup from someone who looks like you, with your body and your weight. And I remember as he was saying this to me, I remember like I felt my whole body flood with like a lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt. And it was so weird because I didn't get mad or even hurt in that moment. I felt this crazy feeling of like my own fear staring back at me, first of all, as he was talking. And I felt this deep feeling, this deep knowing, I should call it, that he's wrong. But I also knew if I was ever going to prove that, I would need to figure out how to believe it for myself, right? Because that's literally half of it. And I thanked him for his time, for his honest advice. And here's what happened in that moment. And by the way, I think this is the defining thing for so many people out there dealing with rejections and how to handle them. Our human nature, our humanness wants to go to a victim mentality, anger, all those things like, oh, F him, what a jerk, like all those things, right? But it was like, of all the things I did wrong, this is one of the things I did right, where I was like, oh my gosh, it hit me. He was passing on investing in our company because of my weight. I was like, wow, he is as much of a byproduct of the beauty industry his whole life as I am, right? It's like, wow, he's making business decisions because in his whole life, he's just seen one type of beauty on TV or in magazines, and he doesn't believe any other way will make him money. And I realized this why is so deep. It's so powerful. Like, not just, oh, let me create products that work. It's like, and by the way, oh my gosh, I'll go off on this for an hour, but so many people, because I've seen so many people fail, right, in their businesses. And I feel like it's because they create their mission, their why, and it just sounds good. Like in this case, my why could have been like, oh, I want to solve my own skin problems, and I want to help other women and other people and other men and other people that are the same. And that would be a great why, and it would sound really good. But it wouldn't have been deep enough to keep me going in all those hard years. And a lot of people have these whys that sound great, like, oh, I want to pay for my kid's school one day, or I want to buy a house. And like, those are great. And if you tell someone else that why, they'll think you're amazing. But literally, it's not deep enough to the core of pain inside of you that's going to keep you going during all the hard times that face most of us, right? So like in that moment, he was obviously completely underestimating me. I also knew I'm also underestimating myself and have to figure out not to. But I turned it into like fuel for that like deep why, like the real why I needed to keep going. And here's the crazy thing about when we trust ourselves and we learn to hear ourselves and trust ourselves, which is like half of my book on how I figured out for me how to do that in a lot of cases and how other people can as well. But like when we believe and trust, whether it's in the universe, whether it's in a power greater than ourselves, for me, faith's a big deal. I believe stuff's divinely orchestrated in my life. And so many times these huge, painful rejections or setbacks or no's like suck in the time, and they're devastating and they don't make sense and they're not fair. But like years later, right, we can look back on them and be like, oh my gosh, that was grace. Because had this dude said yes to me at that time, Sean, I was so desperate. I would have been like, take most of the company for like anything, just help us survive. And it's like, instead, because of so many people rejected me, I couldn't even give my company away for a little bit of money for so many years. And then by the time, fast forward many years, and we did bring on some investors toward the end, but fast forward to 2016, when L'Oreal bought our company, I was still the largest shareholder. And that changed my life, right? And had he said yes to me back then, like, who knows what I'd end up owning. And the day, and by the way, we met with L'Oreal for 3 years. I was really hoping to partner with them because I was like, oh, they could take our vision and scale it globally really quickly. But they said no for 3 years. And when it eventually was a yes, L'Oreal announced that it was their largest acquisition in US history, and it was this all cash deal and this big thing. And I got an email from that guy, from that investor, the day of the deal, because it went on the Wall Street Journal online, the homepage and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And he said, congratulations on your deal. I was wrong. And I learned it would have been the most successful investment in his company's history had he said yes, right? But he underestimated me.
You talk about your why running deep, right? And it sounds good. But I think you proved that when it wasn't just about you. I mean, he was saying no, like, not everyone looks like the person on the cover of a magazine or a beauty magazine. Not everyone looks like that. So and I would be bold enough to say that I believe that that's maybe 10% of the population. So you're excluding 90% of the population because of what you think beauty is, but not really going to the person that maybe they have beauty inside of them, and this is what's going to bring them out. And so, I just really want to commend you on not just having something that sounded good, but it made you like help other people feel good. And you said something earlier about what you were born to be. Mm-hmm. And I know that this subject it was very emotional in the book. And, as a person that never met their biological father before, you also transcended finding out a secret that would devastate most. And you, again, had to believe it and believe in yourself. And I think you know what I'm talking about. Can you just share just a little bit of that?
Thank you. Yeah. And really fast, one thing you asked me earlier, I just realized I forgot you said for people in that moment when they're shaking and how do I get through this? What did you do? What was your mindset? It's exactly what you just said. Like, I forgot to answer you. So just to share it really quick in case it's of value. In that moment, when I'm shaking on live TV and I feel like everything's on the line, exactly what you just said, Sean, I knew it can't be about me, or I'm effed. I'm done. Because literally, if you want the real truth, I was wearing double Spanx at the time. I'm like, my dress feels tight. Is my Spanx absorbing all my sweat dripping down because I'm freaking out? That's what's going on in my head, right? And if I stay, there's that famous saying, if you stay in your head, you're dead, right? I knew this is not about me or I'm going to fail. And it was like in that moment, that's when you dig deep and you call on your why. It's like, oh, this is like for every person out there watching who deserves to see who deserves to see me calling real people beautiful and meaning it. Like, that's what it was about. And so in that moment, the only way I got through it and didn't fail was like, I had to make it not about me. It had to be about something so much bigger than me. It was just too much pressure to handle. I think I couldn't have made it through, let alone connected in an authentic way where people are going to keep their channel on me, not turn it off, and consider buying the product, right? And that's the thing and that's the other thing is your mission has to be so authentic, because had I shown up with this why that was great, but not like the deep core, I don't think people would have connected the same way. And anyways, so I go deep in the book on some personal stuff. I would say 95% of this book I've never shared are stories and lessons I've never shared before.
One question came from Tim Johnson over on Instagram, and he said, all right, what has he had to unlearn during this process? I know you've learned so much. What's one thing you've had to unlearn during this process?
So I've had to unlearn that being independent and a lone wolf, and I don't need to count on anyone else, and I've got this, that's a badge of honor. I've had to unlearn that. Because I talk about some deeply personal stuff in the book. You know, it's not just a business book. It's not just a how do you go after your dreams book. It's also really a book about how do you overcome self-doubt? How do you go from not believing in yourself to believing in yourself, and not trusting yourself to trusting yourself? And one of the big lessons I learned in this book through a personal journey of infertility and of adoption and surrogacy and all kinds of stuff was that life isn't meant to do alone. And my whole life, I've always kind of thought like, oh, I've got this. I'm just going to count on me. I don't need to ask anyone else for help. Being independent is this badge of honor. And for anyone who's a lone wolf out there, this might resonate with them too. But I had a huge realization that I talk about in the book that for me, it wasn't a badge of being a lone wolf, wasn't a badge of honor. That, you know, it was actually a deep-seated fear that I'm not worthy of other people showing up for me.
Wow.
And I had this big epiphany over that. And I had to unlearn this idea that I got this all alone, and that I don't need to ask for help, or that I'm not worthy of asking for other people to show up for me the way I show up for them. I needed to unlearn that. And it's something I still work on every single day. Even in this book launch for Believe It, it was a challenge for me to go, you know what? Let me ask for some of my friends to show up for me and support me in different ways. And let me figure out how to make sure I feel worthy of asking them to. You know, it's still something that I am unlearning and working on every single day. So I talk a lot about that journey in the book, but
And I so appreciate, as somewhat of an introvert that is also probably leans lone wolf, I so appreciated that in the story, and you know, again, illustrated beautifully with a lot of transparency and some raw stories. But I also loved in the book how obviously some of those folks that have come alongside you, that have been along with you and Paulo in this journey, how beautiful it was for them to share in the journey, but also how wonderful it was for you to then be able to share the reward, the payoff, right? And had you not been, you know, if you'd stayed with that lone wolf approach, you know, it's interesting. I think as lone wolves, it's easy to think, well, I'm not going to be a burden for somebody else. But sometimes being a lone wolf is actually being more selfish, right? So you were able to be a huge blessing in so many of your team members' lives because you did open yourself up that way. And it's great. You're going to have to read the book to know that whole story. But it is so true. I love it.
I have two really fun rounds that I want to do before I close. But one thing I want to say, Ed, that I think is really unique to you. And I know that you haven't always been this way, and maybe it's part of your own growth, but I feel like you do something I rarely ever see done publicly, and that's that you are not afraid to show vulnerability. You're not afraid to show sort of these beautiful, what would normally look like contrasting things. And what I mean by that is you're this dude with muscles, and then you're like narrating your two Pomeranians' day, Daisy and Lily, right? You are, you know, you're setting the stadium like on fire. People just their lives are being so impacted, and then you're also very introverted. You know what I mean? There's kind of this contrast. You do it so well, I think, even with, you know, sharing real direct, you know, very direct, confident statements or tools or tips, but then you'll share how, you know, you're not feeling so well, and you know this is happening. It's sort of this contrast of showing all sides of you, and I'm just wondering how you got to that place, because a lot of people are scared. They show up not just on social media, but in their day-to-day lives as part of who they are, but not as all of who they are. How did you get to this place of showing up like and with a confidence as all of who you are?
Great question. Most people are pretty complex, and I am. I mean, there's a lot of simple things about me, but I'm a pretty complicated person in that sense. Like I am really, really intense, and then I'm hopefully, pretty kind person. I think that I do it because I just got tired of trying to pretend I was perfect. I just got tired of it. Like I want people to have hope, not idolization, and so I want people to go, hey, if this guy...
Hold on.
Yeah.
You want people to have hope, not idolization.
Right.
How many people out there right now are just, that's not their priority? That is huge, Ed, what you just said.
Thank you. And the people that were my idols, once I met them, I was like, whoa, wait a minute here, right? So I want people to go, hey, this is a flawed, imperfect person, which we all are. And man, I'm watching this guy fight to really change who he is and get better and grow. And he's obviously learned a lot of tools for doing it. In fact, the reason that I'm so into personal development, self-improvement, self-confidence, all these other things is for me to just become a baseline functioning person, I had to have these tools. And then when I got to baseline, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Maybe we could take this further and actually be, happier and successful. So I want to show that. I want to be able to not show. It's not even showing. It really isn't. It's just like, here it is.
Yeah.
I'm not conscious like I'm going to show. I'm just like, this is me. Like I'm a really intense dude. I love to compete, but I really love people. And also, I think over time, as we age, we change. I think, the 25-year-old me probably would be totally unwilling. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. I think a lot of people would tell you even then I was that way. But maybe I'm a little bit more unafraid to just say, hey, listen, I have fears and insecurities, and I made this mistake with my son, and, I love God, and I love my dad, and, I have fears, and I think that hopefully by hearing those things, you go, well, man, if he could do it, I could do it. This is not some perfect person who's got it all figured out. I'll just say this, I've got some things figured out. And that's better than I used to be. And if I could give you what I know, maybe I could save you a bunch of time, a bunch of mistakes I made, speed up your happiness and success through all the mistakes I've made. So I also love people like you. And this is where all this kind of comes together. I love really confident people who have a ton of humility. And I don't love confident people who don't have humility, and I'm not really interested in being around a bunch of humble people who have no self-confidence. Self-confident people who have humility are curious. They want to learn, they want to grow. Self-confident person without that, they're hard to be around. You know this. And they eventually probably make a mistake or burn out or whatever. And then our humble friends who we love so much, they're just hard to take through life with you if they have no self-confidence. Like, come on, you can do it, let's go. And so I love people who tread that nuance really well. You do that as well as anybody I've ever met before. Like there's this strength of a woman in there. Like there's this, and I've watched you like defend me in different situations. Like there's this really strong, confident woman who knows who she is, but so humble, so much humility that she still has this other part of her that's, and also wants to learn, wants to grow, values other people, right? Like humility is, I think, sometimes just the value of other people. And when you have all this self-confidence and no humility, it's like, are you the most important person?
Yeah.
So hopefully over time I've nuanced that pretty well.
I think it's beautiful. I mean, even when you're doing animal voices on your, I think it's beautiful because I think people at home are like, oh, I do that too. And I think it's just this beautiful kind of like showing all sides. And, I want to say it's obviously no accident. Millions and millions of people connect with you, your shows. And you are one of the few people who does a really good job at showing both sides of things. You'll have somebody, talk about politics, you'll have somebody extremely left one day and the next day someone extremely right.
Yeah.
You'll show both sides of everything, never even sharing where you're at. And you, I've always felt this, and this has always kind of just been dumbfounding to me that I feel like the quickest way to get dull in life is to only surround yourself with people that think the way you do.
Yes.
Right? And so many people only surround themselves with people who think the way that they do.
Oh, that's the thing to do now, isn't it? You
It
only
is right now.
You only be around people who share your political beliefs, your spiritual beliefs, your life beliefs. You know what's really the truth, and you know this. You ain't learning very much from them. you very rarely learn anything from anybody who completely agrees with you on everything.
Yeah.
And even in your companies, you know this, when we're building the company, I want people who disagree with me. I want people who challenge me. I want people with a diverse background. I want people who come at it from a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
And so I have lots, as you know, and so do you, and we laugh about some of our mutual friends that disagree with stuff with each other. My dad and I disagreed on a lot of stuff. One of the most interesting, fascinating things about my dad was we didn't agree on political things all the time. We certainly didn't agree on religious things all the time. Our outlook on all kinds of stuff was very different. To say that my dad and I are the same person in that regard isn't true. My favorite person, that an adult person in my life is my dad, and me and him disagreed on lots of stuff, and I learned lots of stuff. And some of the things over time, I do think more like him again. But I don't want people around me all the time who agree with me, and I don't want people all the time around me that just agree with everything I think. How boring. You're right. No, you're right. No, you're right. Oh, we're both right.
We're both right.
Isn't this crazy? And they're so this,
It's
and they're
destiny.
so that. And it is so our culture now, isn't it?
Yes.
It's so our culture. And and every facet is trying to put us in these camps. Like, you're over there. You're one of those. You're one of those. I'm one of these. And man, that is absolutely not how this thing's supposed to work.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100% counter to how the world is supposed to work. I promise you, of all the things we talked about today, I'm the most sure of what I'm telling you right now, that we are supposed to be different. There's supposed to be diversity of thought, of behavior, of background, of culture, of religion, of ethnicity. The diversity in our world is the strength of this world. And if there was ever a leader who rose up and said, I'm embracing that, and I'm not even going to let you play your game where you're pitted against one another.
Yeah.
Oh man, would we change the world?
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima!
Jamie Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.